It's Tuesday, February 17th. This is CTV at 6. Here's what's making news tonight. For the second straight month, food inflation soars and highest in Atlantic Canada. New Brunswick goes deeper into the red with a deficit now over $1 billion.
A bit cloudier tomorrow with some snow and flurries, but we should have some sunnier conditions to finish the week.
Live from our Maritime's News Center, this is CTV News at 6. Here is Todd Battis.
Good evening. Nowhere in this country have food prices soared higher than right here where we live. For the second consecutive month, the cost of food has increased 7.3% on average in Canada, but that jumps significantly in the Atlantic. With the numbers and what's behind them, here's CTV's Jonathan McGuinness.
Nationally, food inflation jumped to 7.3% year over year in January. That's up from 6.2% in December, according to a Stats Canada report released Tuesday. Those numbers surprised the experts.
Well, actually, we were expecting a rate of 6.5%, so an increase from 6.2%, but we're now at 7.3%, which is incredibly high.
The numbers are even more shocking in our region. Food inflation in New Brunswick sits at 9%, a touch higher in Nova Scotia at 9.2%, and PEI comes in at 10.1%. Some products are more expensive than others.
Essentially protein, so you have to think about beef. Beef is up again 18.8%, so that's still going up. Pork is also a big issue.
That has people looking for deals.
A lot of people don't make a lot of money, and a lot of people like to shop where the things are on special all the time.
This is a Tuesday, and you can see behind me that we're pretty busy.
Tamara McKay is the PR manager at the Gateway Meat Market, a discount grocer in the Halifax area.
Every time food prices go up elsewhere, we kind of get more of an influx of customers because we are more of a discounted grocery store, and that leads to people wanting to make a longer drive to find more affordable groceries.
Blair McLeod is one of those customers. He drove an hour to save a few dollars.
Well, I like the prices. The food's good. I live in Annapolis Valley.
There was some good news in the Stats Can report. Prices dropped for things like eggs and fresh fruit. And Todd Sylvain Charlebois expects food inflation to come back down a bit in February, but compared to other countries, our food prices will still be relatively high for the foreseeable future. Todd.
All right, thank you, John. Leading us off at the grocery store tonight near Dartmouth. And the CTV web poll asks this question: which grocery items do you think have seen the biggest jump in price? We got a few for you here: dairy, meat, produce, pantry items, or maybe it's junk food. Now, later in the show, we'll get more details on where food prices are headed when Sylvain Charlebois, who you saw there, joins us. And you can vote for the poll at our website, ctvnewsatlantic.ca. Well, no one can say it was a surprise. The Susan Holt government has long signaled the deficit was on the rise. Still, the number revealed in today's fiscal update caught even the most prepared off guard. CTV's Laura Brown now on the largest deficit in provincial history.
It's a record no one wants to set. At $1.33 billion, New Brunswick's deficit is higher than ever before.
We had 100,000 people move into this province and increase our revenue. The revenue generation came in immediately, but an extra 100,000 people in this province obviously brings its costs with it. The costs are coming in now.
Revenues from corporate and personal taxes and the HST are all down, while demand in health and social services rose by over $500 million, including a new contract with doctors, which cost $176 million alone. Legacy said if you total up all Canadian provinces' deficits from the second quarter, they equal over $45 billion.
So this is not a New Brunswick situation, it's an across-the-country situation.
That's cold comfort for the people worried about what this could mean for them.
We're leaving the legacy of the higher debt for future generations. So it's causing an effect where people might start saying, do I really want to live in New Brunswick where the tax rate is so incredibly high that for every dollar earned, my disposable income is very minimal?
Legacy was asked if this warrants his removal as finance minister. He said that's not his decision to make.
Should we have not taken off the PST portion on electricity and saved $90 million? Maybe. I'm not sure it would have helped New Brunswickers. Should we have not signed the nursing contract, the bonuses that we said we were going to do for a one-time expense? Maybe, but it did stabilize the situation with the nurses and health.
He's looking for more New Brunswickers' input on the situation. Deadline is Friday. And Todd, there's still one more quarter of this fiscal year to go. Now, Legacy did say he's hopeful that final number to round out the 2025-26 fiscal year will be lower than the projected $1.33 billion deficit. But we won't know until the budget is formally tabled 1 month from today. Todd.
All right, 1 month. Laura Brown from the New Brunswick Legislature tonight. Thank you, Laura. Police in Moncton are now calling the death of a woman whose body was discovered in a garbage bin on Sunday a homicide. CTV's Derek Haggett has our update.
The death of a woman whose body was discovered at the end of High Street in Moncton is being investigated as a homicide. The RCMP says the woman was around 40 years old and from Moncton. Some in the area shocked and saddened.
I have 2 small children, and I could have been walking by there with my children. My kids could have seen that, and it's sad. It's really sad. It's a shame that it happened because it's somebody's daughter, somebody's partner or sister, you know.
Her body was discovered in a garbage bin at the very bottom of High Street around noon Sunday by someone who lives nearby.
It was my roommate that saw the garbage can, and he was disturbed because he went to see what it was, and when he looked in, he saw an arm. He called 911 and ran in to get me because he wanted to talk to somebody. He didn't want to go through that on his own.
The RCMP's Major Crime Unit is investigating. Meanwhile, police were still on scene of an operation that took place early Monday morning a few blocks away. The RCMP has confirmed the operation on Norwood Avenue is in connection with the homicide investigation. Several members of the RCMP, including a forensic team, continue to investigate at the 8-unit building. Police are not saying if there are any suspects. Derek Haggett, CTV News, Moncton.
We're going to stay in Moncton for a moment. Today's proceedings at the Jansen Baker double murder trial abruptly ended with the jury sent home. Legal matters needed to be discussed before the defense presented its evidence, so the jury was told to return tomorrow. Baker has pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Bernard and Rosemary Saunier. The elderly Dieppe couple were shot and killed in their home in the fall of 2019. Crown prosecution wrapped up its case last Thursday. Family and friends of the Sauniers have been in attendance since the trial began in early January. A 21-year-old man is facing an attempted murder charge after a shooting last month in Westfall, just outside Dartmouth. The shooting took place around supper time in the parking lot of the 700 block of Highway 7. The victim was sitting in a vehicle when the suspect drove up, got out of his car, and fired shots. The person targeted was not injured. Police arrested Martino Maurice Williams last week. He's been charged with attempted murder and discharging a firearm with intent. He remains in custody until his next court appearance. There's a live look at uptown St. John right now, -2 degrees. Let's bring in CTV meteorologist Kayla Mitchell for our first look at the forecast. And the light slowly coming back.
Yes, that's right. As I mentioned earlier in the 5 o'clock show, about 3 minutes of daylight day by day here right now, Todd. And saw a beautiful scene there in St. John. And there is some snow that's going to be moving into St. John and other areas, New Brunswick, as we move through this evening and tonight. We can see the start of that band here on radar. It's already filling in up around the northwest of the province, into the area from Edmundston, Grand Falls, Perth, Andover, up towards Campbellton, Dalhousie, and will work its way towards the west and the southwest as well as we move through this evening and tonight. This is along a relatively weak weather front. It's off of a low pressure system in through Quebec. Now, this band of snow will continue to make its way across the Maritimes, not only tonight, but also through the first part of the day on Wednesday. And we are likely to see some snow accumulation from it. The highest chance of maybe some amounts in the range of 5 to 10 centimeters is for communities in the northernmost areas of New Brunswick, and especially up at higher terrain. Other parts of the region, mostly expecting maybe some snowfall amounts of around 1 to 5 centimeters. It does look like it could be a snowy start to the day, though, for communities in Prince Edward Island, as well as northern and central areas of Nova Scotia. Remember, it doesn't take all that much snow down on the roads to make things a little bit slippery. So if you do have some snow around your area, maybe it's accumulated a little bit on the ground for first thing Wednesday morning, give yourself a little bit of extra time and space. So with the increasing cloudiness for tonight, it's not ideal night sky viewing conditions, but here's a couple things you can maybe spot before the cloud cover really moves in earnest. It's a new moon tonight, so it's 0% illuminated. That makes it easier, though, to do some planet gazing, including watching for the planet Saturn, which will be setting on the western horizon this evening, shortly after sunset, actually. And then the aurora is unlikely to be observed tonight. There will be a pass from the International Space Station early tomorrow morning from the west towards the northeast. But as I just talked about, for a amount of cloud cover around, some snow and some flurries to start the day on Wednesday. I will recap that for everyone, and we're going to look ahead to maybe the return of some Monday snow. I know it's what, been a week, 2-week break there, Todd, before we had to talk about a Monday snow. Something on the potential there in the extended forecast, so I'll have that coming up later on.
All right, we'll look forward to that. Thank you. Yeah. Earlier today, the Prime Minister announced generational spending to grow Canada's defence sector and jobs with it. CTV's Nick Moore looks at how that money could make an impact here.
Canadian jobs created right here.
Prime Minister Mark Carney says a $6.6 billion plan to build up the domestic defense sector will add 125,000 jobs over the next decade.
As a matter of policy, military procurement in areas where we have sovereign capabilities will be directed to Canadian firms first.
The northern focus is going to get very serious now.
Independent defense and security analyst Ken Hansen says the Atlantic region can benefit from that focus.
The shipbuilding part and the submarine building part, if they follow the formula that was so successful with the Arctic and offshore patrol ships, will bring new invigorating funds and a demand. Those people can come from all across the country, and the materials need to come from all across the country as well.
New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt says she's been working directly with Ottawa over the past several months to have more federal money go to base Gagetown. Here's Holt at a meeting with the Prime Minister and Premiers in late January.
We have a huge opportunity in front of us as a province that is where Canada's military is made and where our critical role in our nation's sovereignty has never been more clear.
In a statement today, the Premier's office says federal officials have indicated that money for infrastructure approaching $1 billion could be directed to Gagetown. Nick Moore, CTV News, Fredericton.
Government workers in Nova Scotia are being told to return to the office full-time. The province wants public employees back 5 days a week. As CTV's Jesse Thomas reports, it's not going down well with unions representing civil servants.
The return to office directive affects roughly 3,000 unionized employees that the Nova Scotia government wants back in the workplace full-time. The work order went out last week, impacting 25% of the civil service workforce. This labor lawyer says the move is significant, but it's not an unusual ask.
I would be surprised if any employer who is making this kind of a move affecting a quarter to, we'll say, 20% of its workforce hasn't laid the groundwork already.
Johnson points out that many in the private sector have already been mandated back into the office post-COVID, while so too have other government employees. Roughly half the 3,000 unionized employees will report to offices in downtown Halifax. The Nova Scotia General Employees Union raises a concern over traffic and congestion issues.
It's going to add to the traffic congestion in this already busy city. Parking where we don't have parking enough for folks now, it's going to cause a lot of headaches.
While the PC government is facing a record $1.4 billion deficit, the union president says they aren't seeing any evidence this return to work decision will save money.
This is not a cost-saving measure. our folks are going to have to find more office space.
The province's Public Service Commission office said no extra cost will come from the move back to in-person work. Johnson says there are benefits to having employees together.
It's very difficult to build work culture over Teams meetings or Zoom. So I could see why the province wants people back to work in the office, engaging with each other to establish appropriate standards and learning opportunities.
Employees have been given a 60-day notice with full return to the office by mid-April. Jesse Thomas, CTV News, Halifax.
We're going to take a break now. Still to come tonight, Kaylin has details of those flurries and light snow that could be on the horizon. First, though, a titan of the American equal rights movement has died.
Today, generations of people are paying respects to civil rights icon Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm Christiane Cordero in Washington with more on his life and legacy coming up.
Reverend Jesse Jackson, who for more than 5 decades stood as a towering figure of the civil rights movement, has died. He rose to prominence in the 1960s along Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was a 2-time presidential candidate and a fierce advocate for voting rights. ABC's Christiane Cordero looks back on his work.
Today, generations of people are reflecting on the life and legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson, whose message reached far and wide.
Red, yellow, brown, black, and white, we're all precious in God's sight.
The 84-year-old civil rights leader and 2-time presidential candidate died early this morning, according to family. In a statement, Jackson's family said the Reverend died peacefully in his sleep, adding, quote, "Our father was a servant leader, not only to our family, but to the oppressed, the voiceless, and the overlooked around the world." Reverend Al Sharpton is also paying tribute, saying Jackson was his mentor.
He was one who was more responsible than anyone for teaching me activism.
Jackson worked relentlessly for underrepresented communities both in the U.S. and abroad. He met with countless world leaders, created the Rainbow Coalition to empower multiracial political power, and his work continues today at his organization's headquarters in Chicago.
I officially announce my candidacy.
Jackson ran for president twice in 1984 and again 4 years later.
I'd rather go down in the stirring fight than drowse to death at the sheltered shore.
But he would stand in Chicago's Grant Park in tears while witnessing America's first black president deliver his victory speech in 2008. Jackson was considered the protege of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Today, Dr. King's daughter, Bernice King, shared this photo with her father next to the young Reverend, writing, "Both now ancestors."
President Trump today paid respects to Jackson's legacy in a social media post that also criticized his political opponents and focused on ways he helped Jackson through the decades. Former Vice President Kamala Harris today called Jackson one of America's greatest patriots. Christiane Cordero, ABC News, Washington.
Jesse Jackson paid a visit to our region 17 years ago, back in 2009. His visit involved a surprise stop at Cole Harbour High School, where he spoke to students. From there, he visited the Black Cultural Center before sitting down with CTV Atlantic to talk about the history of the African Nova Scotian community, of which he was very knowledgeable.
But I know so much about it because so many friends have come here across the years, because as we look at the African diaspora, so many who were enslaved in Africa who came to the Americas escaped slavery there coming here, a significant body to Nova Scotia. And of course other parts of Canada. This was the land of escape, for them the land of freedom. So there's a rich history of the African Canadian community here in Nova Scotia.
Given that history,
you can see the interview with Reverend Jesse Jackson in its entirety. We have that on our Video Vault section at our website, ctvnewsatlantic.ca. Still to come, some light snow and flurries for Wednesday. Kaylin Mitchell working on the full maritime forecast. He'll have that for us after the break. Quite a bit of snow on the ground at St. Bernard's Park. This is in Enfield, Nova Scotia. Time for weather now on this Tuesday evening. Meteorologist Kayla Mitchell joining me at the desk here. And normally we start out on the west coast, make our way across. But tonight you're going to start further south. Explain what's coming towards us.
Exactly, or potentially coming towards us. You know, yesterday, and I still want to touch on this a little bit, big snow event through parts of the prairies. It does continue today into areas of Saskatchewan. There's some warnings out related to that. I want to look forward, though, to us here in the Maritime, so maybe when we have our potential to see our next big snow event. So we're jumping forward. We're going to the weekend. It's beginning Sunday night, actually late Saturday night into early Sunday morning. It's a low-pressure system developing off of the Carolinas. Now, it moves off the coastline of the Carolinas and picks up strength, starts to make its way northward. And then that's when it becomes of interest to us, because it's one of these sort of classic coastal low-pressure systems that tend to give us some of our bigger snow events. It's all about how close it gets to us. And right now, it's quite a spread in some of the forecast guidance. There's a few forecast models that are showing the center of that weather system passing far to the east of Sable Island. You can see that keeps the bulk of the snow, which is highlighted here in through those blues, offshore of the Maritime region. However, some other guidance that shows that that low pressure system could come a little bit closer to the Maritimes, maybe crawling right up the Atlantic coastline of Nova Scotia, potentially touching into that province. And you can see that shifts some of the heavier snow, which again represented here in through the blues, more squarely into the Maritimes. So there's a couple things we know and we don't know about this weather system at this point in time. We know it's likely to develop. We know that it's likely to be the Monday, Tuesday time frame of next week. We know that if we're keeping track of day-by-day snowfall potential right now, that we're likely to see some large changes in it because of the huge variance right now and some of the guidance for this weather system. And there's little we can do about that right now because it doesn't exist yet, this weather system. It's not something we can track on satellite and radar. And we also know that I'm going to be keeping on top of this situation here in the Weather Center, and we'll have updates on it throughout the week. Taking a look at our forecast timeline, though, in our short-term forecast, we do have some snow and some flurries that are arriving for the Maritimes tonight. It is going to be periods of snow for the north of New Brunswick, with potential snowfall amounts there between 5 and 10 centimeters. And that band of snow will continue to progress across the Maritimes as we move through the overnight and through Wednesday morning, crossing Prince Edward Island, northern, central, eastern areas of Nova Scotia. In behind it for Wednesday afternoon, there'll be some scattered flurries around, as well as some sunny breaks. Now, winds in the forecast for tonight will be mostly on the lighter side. Tomorrow's winds out of the northwest, they pick up a little bit. Some of the gusts getting into the range of around 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Some breezier conditions expected, and that happens in behind the passage of that weak weather front that is driving some of that snow, some of that flurry action into our region both tonight and tomorrow. Now, low temperatures in the forecast tonight for the Maritimes. In a lot of cases, will be falling into a range around -3 to -9. High temperatures in the forecast for tomorrow in the north of New Brunswick will be in the range of 0 to -3, including -2 at Edmundston, -3 at Grand Falls, -1 at Bathurst, and actually Miramichi getting up to around +1. There will be a few communities tomorrow in New Brunswick that do have temperatures on the plus side of the scale, including Fredericton getting up to 1 degree there, St. John getting to 1, and Moncton, the southeast, up to around 2. For Prince Edward Island for tomorrow, most of the high temperatures between -1 and +1. Flurries, light snow in the forecast, maybe some snowfall amounts of 1 to 5 centimeters. Might be a little bit higher than the 5 centimeter mark for a few communities in Prince County, Prince Edward Island. In the east of Nova Scotia for tomorrow, most of the high temperatures between -1 and +2, and there's some flurries and some snow moving through. Again, snowfall amounts for around 1 to 5 centimeters. Same thing goes for northern and central areas of Nova Scotia. High temperatures between 2 and 4 degrees. So even though 1 to 5 centimeters possible, there will likely be some melting or at least some compaction down of that snow throughout the day. And in the southwest of Nova Scotia, scattered flurries and high temperatures around 3-4 degrees. In the extended forecast for New Brunswick, it's going to be a sunnier end to the week. Temperatures do start to get a little bit colder into the upcoming weekend. It's a mix of sun and cloud right now, Saturday and Sunday. Watching for that potential snow, that Monday, Tuesday time frame of next week. For Nova Scotia in the outlook coming up for Friday, it is going to be a mix of sun and cloud with high temperatures, a few degrees below 0. Gets a little bit colder by a couple of degrees for Saturday, the mix of sun and cloud, a mix of sun and cloud for the end of the weekend on Sunday, the potential for that snow Monday into Tuesday. And for Prince Edward Island, coming up in the forecast for Thursday, it's isolated flurries. Friday, it's a mix of sun and cloud with a high of around -4, -6 on Saturday, the mix of sun and clouds, so a little bit colder that day. Flurries in the forecast for Sunday. And then, Todd, watching for that snow potentially at Monday, Tuesday timeframe of next week.
All right, thank you. We will see you for the wake-up weather. We have a weather-related story now. Nova Scotia is casting its future to the wind. Premier Tim Houston wants offshore energy to power homes and the economy. An engineering firm has found this is one of the best spots on Earth to do it. But as CTV's Emma Convey found out, it won't be a breeze.
Atlantic Canada doesn't yet have offshore wind turbines. But according to the province and a report by engineering firm Stantec, the resource has massive potential here.
On the technical side, the technical potential is over 400 gigawatts of development potential. And then the report finds that the build-out of offshore wind in the region is not constrained by the offshore wind resource, but it's constrained by the export markets and by the electricity grid that enable us to access the export market.
The almost 3-year study on offshore wind in Atlantic Canada focused heavily on the constraints of these projects. The report says Nova Scotia could generate 9 gigawatts of power in its existing wind energy areas by 2050, but more if it's producing for other markets.
Scotia's peak electricity demand is 2.4. So the first round of offshore wind will produce more than twice what we need here in Nova Scotia.
For example, in Quebec, in Ontario, in the northeast of the United States, the really big electricity consumers in the region, and the amount of offshore wind capacity that we would see in Nova Scotia or in other parts of Atlantic Canada really depends on those export markets.
Some limiting factors include ocean floor conditions, marine protected areas, and existing fishing areas. The Department of Energy says the regional assessment for offshore wind found the potential to be more than 60 gigawatts throughout the province's designated wind energy areas. In a statement to CTV News, the department says other studies may use different methodologies that are more conservative, but at the end of the day, everyone agrees it's a vast, untapped resource.
It's good to have a high end and a low end to our estimates. And in reality, 60 gigawatts was always going to be more than was realistic. It would be like a blanket. Globally, the world produces 83 gigawatts of wind electricity.
The next step in this 3-part study is to look at the grid infrastructure that's needed to enable offshore wind projects in the region. Emma Convey, CTV News, Halifax.
Next, we'll talk with the head of the Dalhousie University Agri-Food Lab, Sylvain Charlebois, on that latest inflation hike in food, what we're paying at the grocery store. Stay with us.
Okay, congratulations to Max Hales, our Virgin Radio $100,000 winner with Destroy Your Debt.
And coming up next, we have the Virgin Radio Vault.
Yeah, that all starts on Monday.
Welcome back. We want to continue. Jonathan McGuinness is reporting now with the new Stats Canada inflation numbers that show food prices continue to soar in Canada, Atlantic Canada in particular. Joining us to talk about this is Sylvain Charlebois. He, of course, is the head of the Dalhousie University Agri-Food Lab and visiting professor at McGill University. We've reached him here at home. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well, Todd.
You've been waving the red flag for a little while now that we should expect another big jump. 7.3%. Is that in line with what you were expecting?
Actually, we were expecting less. We were expecting higher than last month. So last month we were at 6.2. We were expecting a 6.5 maybe, but at 7.3, it's really high, and especially for the Atlantic provinces. On average, Atlantic provinces are anywhere between 9.2% to 10.1%. So clearly our region is being hit hard by higher food inflation rates for sure.
Okay, take us through why we may be getting it worse than other parts of the country. And some of this is not new. I mean, you've talked about this before.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I want to address is this GST holiday that happened a year ago. A lot of people may feel, well, these numbers are inflated because of the GST holiday, because a year ago, numbers were really low, so we were expecting high numbers. But we actually did the math today, Todd, extracting the effect of the GST holiday, and our food inflation rate would be anywhere between 6.2 to 6.3%, which would still be the highest rate among G7 countries. So we're clearly facing a problem. When you look at the Atlantic region in particular, the fact that we don't process most of the food we actually buy at the grocery store, the fact that we're remotely located, the fact that we have to deal with a lot of barriers isolating our regions from Quebec and Ontario, and I would say that Premier Houston is bang on in focusing on this problem, because it is a big problem for our region. And because of these barriers, basically, we have fewer options. And when you have fewer options, there's less competition. And we all know what happens to food prices then.
Have you seen any movement on trade barriers between the provinces? Because there has been so much talk about it. As you mentioned, Premier Tim Houston, that was at the top of his priority list for a while. Yep. But has anything really, worked its way down to the grocery store shelves?
Well, you have to give credit to Ottawa for laying out what I consider to be a very clear roadmap, inviting provinces to do the heavy lifting on eliminating these barriers. And I do believe that premiers in our own region, starting with Premier Houston and Premier Holt in New Brunswick, they've done a really good job making this issue a real one. But the problem, I think, is in Quebec and Ontario. Lots of talk and little has been done, really. And we rely heavily on those two big provinces to allow for more products to flow through, back and forth, of course. Because, Todd, you have to think in terms of buying and selling. Our companies in Nova Scotia or New Brunswick or in the Atlantic can't scale up if you can only sell to a few million. But if you can sell to 10, 12, 15 million, you can scale up and reduce the cost of food that you're producing.
Do you think there's been, you've written a bit about this, has there been too much focus on the effects of climate change on pricing and not enough on government policy?
Well, I mean, climate change is a factor. I mean, obviously, if you look at, say, cocoa and coffee and beef, I mean, over the last little while, we've all talked about these things, and they were impacted by climate change. But I do think that short-sighted policy has actually surpassed the effects of climate change. And I'm thinking of the GST holiday. Now, the GST holiday, people may think, well, we weren't paying taxes for 2 months. The problem with the GST holiday is that, well, it was a holiday, it was temporary, which allowed for opportunistic pricing to occur. So as we were celebrating the fact that we weren't paying taxes, prices were actually going up. we just didn't realize it. Now, that this is when we can actually measure it. And of course, counter-tariffs last year. We were applying counter-tariffs on a lot of different things, which ended up costing us a lot of money, and prices aren't dropping also. So the accumulation of all these decisions have actually made prices much higher at the grocery store. So we need to stop doing that and start focusing on structural issues like interprovincial trade barriers, and of course the industrial, helping the industry from farm gate to store specifically, and logistics. We need to actually invest more on logistics, better roads, better railways, and better ports.
You've written that our infrastructure, when you talk about that, ports, highways, et cetera, it's just too antiquated.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at, no disrespect towards our friends at the Halifax port, but if you look at some of these rankings out there, often all three major ports in Canada, not St. John's, but Montreal and Vancouver, they all rank in a third tier when you compare these three ports with other ports around the world on efficiency and productivity. So we have a problem when it comes to logistics in Canada, and that actually ends up costing more money at the grocery store.
Any reason for optimism?
Eggs are cheaper.
Okay.
Fruits are cheaper. than last year, for sure. But I mean, to be positive about all this is that we are expecting the food inflation rate to drop in February, but we're still going to see some prices rise, unfortunately, over the next little while.
All right, we'll leave it there, Sylvain. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you next month to see how the numbers shake down again. Appreciate you coming on tonight.
All right, take care.
We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this.
February is Black History Month, recognizing Walter Peters. Walter Wally Peters was a pioneering Black Canadian aviator from Nova Scotia who in 1963 became the first Canadian-born black jet fighter pilot in the Royal Canadian Air Force. He later served as a flight instructor, flew with the Snowbirds aerial team, and became the force's first human rights officer. And in 2018, a roadway at the Halifax Stanfield International Airport was named in his honor.
In the Lifeline tonight.
Next part is 10,000.
In the Lifeline tonight, scaling back on social media use for even just... Oh.
Young adults who took just a 7-day social media break saw noticeable improvements in their mental health, a new JAMA Network Open study suggests. After a week off apps like Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, participants reported lower levels of anxiety and depression, and even insomnia. Those who had started with more severe symptoms had the greatest benefits. Researchers say constant scrolling can amplify stress and negative comparisons, and even short breaks may give the brain time to reset. The long-term effects of taking a social media timeout are still unknown, but in the short term, a simple digital pause could offer a real mood boost. 2 brands of birth control pills prescribed in Canada have been recalled due to packaging errors. The public advisory warns users not to skip any doses and to get to a pharmacy for a replacement or alternative if possible. The recall by Teva Canada followed a complaint from a user who noted a package of the pills was missing an entire blister card. Upon investigation, the company issued a recall of 2 lots of Seasonique and 1 lot of Seasonal. In addition to possible pregnancy, the recall notes missing a pill may lead to other side effects like spotting or irregular bleeding. New research suggests that body weight and childhood doesn't lock in the future. It's long-term health trends that matter most. Published in the Journal of the American Medical Association's Pediatrics, the study of more than 100,000 people found that children with higher weight who reached the recommended weight range by early adulthood had no extra risk of developing heart disease later on. The highest risk was seen in those who added extra pounds during puberty, even if they were slim in early childhood. This suggests the timing of body changes may matter just as much as the numbers on a scale. With health and medical news, I'm Stephanie Seacoast for The Lifeline.
All right, we got things straightened out. In the Scene, a story we tried to air in the 5 o'clock show, but the Gremlins had other plans. So we bring you Ryan McDonald's report on a magical musical that's heating up the stage at Cape Breton's Savoy Theatre.
Arendelle.
It's completely frozen. It's one of the most well-known and most loved Disney movies of the 21st century.
It's so magical and fun and uplifting.
I never see you anymore. Come out the door.
Now, a production of the movie Frozen with local cast and crew is playing at the Savoy Theatre in Glace Bay. Catherine Woodward landed one of the biggest roles. She plays Elsa.
I just feel like there's something about a Disney show that's very important to have in a community because it's for the kid in all of us.
I love playing Anna. I feel like I relate to her a lot. I have an older sister.
For 22-year-old Bria Kelly, this is her first ever major role on stage, and it's in her hometown. She says that it's special to play a co-lead in a production of a movie that she first saw in theaters when she was only 9 years old.
I want people to take away just the story of love. I think it's so important now to really embrace our love for one another and just have a story of so much hope.
Literally, the rights became available, and
we grab them.
The executive director of the Savoy Theatre says a production like this helps with funding to keep the nearly 100-year-old theatre open. And while a locally produced play with costumes and set is a lot more expensive than, say, bringing in a musical artist, she says it's worth it.
Adults at intermission on the weekend were coming out into the lobby just crying, and just because it's a happy cry, it's a sad cry, it's a very emotional show. And the adults get that part of it.
The executive director of the Savoy Theatre says that last weekend's shows played to about 90% capacity here. She adds that 2 more shows were added for this coming weekend and that tickets for them are still available.
I've been seeing a lot of little Elsas and Annas.
And while this Anna and Elsa say there's nothing like seeing the expression on the little girls' faces in the crowd, everyone involved feels strongly that this is a show, well, for all ages.
They were singing along in the crowd, and that was so wonderful because, you know, we've been rehearsing this for a long time with just each other, and we've been feeding off each other.
They'll let the storm rage on with shows Saturday night and Sunday afternoon. Ryan McDonald, CTV News, Glace Bay.
We're not going to worry about those technical blips. We're just going to let it go. Here's what's on TV tonight.
With Aaron and Peter. You're never going to want to leave beaches, Turks and Caicos when you win Password to Paradise.
And you could win that trip tomorrow with us just after 7 o'clock.
Our business report now, and the Dow Jones closed the trading day up a couple dozen points. Lower gas prices helped to bring inflation down overall for Canada last month. BNN Bloomberg's Lindsay Biscaya has the details.
The annual rate of inflation ticked down in the month of January to 2.3%. StatsCan says gas prices were about 16% lower year over year, but that decline was offset by food inflation, which increased more than 7% annually. Shelter inflation also eased, only rising 1.7% in January. That's the first time in almost 5 years that figure has been below 2%. And Wheaton Precious Metals is doubling down on its silver exposure, signing a $4.3 billion silver streaming agreement with BHP. Wheaton will pay BHP the money up front in cash, making this the most valuable precious metals streaming deal to date. Shares of Sherritt International took a hit today. The company is reducing operations at its joint venture in Cuba due to fuel shortages there. Now, the move comes after Sherritt received notification that planned fuel deliveries will not be fulfilled, and there's no timeline for resumption at this point. Here are the closing numbers for the day. The Canadian dollar didn't move much, ending the day at 73.31. West Texas Intermediate is down to 62.26. Western Canadian Select is up to just over $47 a barrel. And the TSX dropped today and is now below 33,000. Those are your business headlines. I'm Lindsay Biscaya.
Kayla Mitchell has the last word on the weather. Kayla?
Yeah, a chilly February evening out here on the weather deck, but I want to take you to our viewer picture for tonight, which features one of my favorite weather phenomena, and this is a fog bow, or sometimes known as a ghost bow. Now, it's the same principle as a rainbow. It's just that the tiny water droplets that comprise fog cause a more washed out appearance of the arc. So I want to thank Richard Gallant very much for sending this in. This is from Oyster Bed Bridge, Prince Edward Island, where for tomorrow it's cloudy, there's some flurries moving through, and the high temperature is going to be near 1 degree. Day planner for tomorrow across the Maritime region. Snowy start to the day for Prince Edward Island, parts of northern, central areas of Nova Scotia, as that band of snow is expected to be set up around that part of the region to begin. Now, that band of snow will be moving off towards the east, so moving across Prince Edward Island and eastern Nova Scotia as we move through the morning hours into the early afternoon. And behind it, there will be some scattered flurries for other parts of the Maritimes, but also expecting some sunny breaks. Todd.
All right, Caitlin, have a great night. We will see you tomorrow. Finally this evening, this is Shrove Tuesday. Maybe you're finishing up a pancake dinner. It is, of course, also Mardi Gras in New Orleans. Floats started rolling through the French Quarter this morning. The traditional throwing of beads and other gifts to parade goers in the crowd. Mayor Helena Moreno arrived ahead of the Zulu parade on horseback. That's a long-standing tradition for mayors in New Orleans. And speaking of tradition, the Mardi Gras parade in that city dates back to 1833. That is our look at the day here at home. Bruce Frisco is here with the late news at 11:30 and ctvnewsatlantic.ca and the CTV News app. Have updates anytime. I'm Todd Battis. I hope you'll join us back here tomorrow night at 6. Until then, good night.
CTV News, the Maritime's #1 newscast. Watch live on Crave.